That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Dream Horse, the latest film directed by Euros Lyn that premiered at the 2020 Sundance Film Festival. And it's actually based on a 2015 documentary called Dark Horse, which was Audience Award winner at the Sundance Film Festival. And Bleecker Street is releasing it May 21st, 2021.
The director?
Euros Lyn.
Do we know his other work?
He's Welsh. He did a lot of television, did about a decade's worth of Doctor Who, I believe.
Oh.
Has won several BAFTAs for other television films.
Well, Dream Horse is a sweet, simple, heartwarming story. The basic plot is there is a little Welsh village that used to be a mining town, but then that went away, so it's kind of like downtrodden. And the community we see, just very simple people. The main focus is a character named Jan, who's played by Collette. She is a cashier at a grocery store. She lives with her husband, Brian.
Played by Owen Teale, Game of Thrones.
Doesn't have all 32 teeth in his mouth, and he seems to just sit at home and watch TV. So everything just seems dowdy about everyone. When one night, Jan, who also moonlights as a bartender at like a local pub, she overhears a patron named Howard talking about horse racing, and it piques her interest. It's important to know that little village, and Jan specifically, were known for pigeon racing. Like it was kind of a big deal, but then when the mining went away, I guess that went away. But anyway, Jan has the bright idea to try to breed a thoroughbred horse.
Yep, she takes upon herself to buy a mare.
So she takes all her little $300 savings.
Rubel.
Buys a mare. And then she somehow gets several community members to agree to join a syndicate where they each give $10 a week with the plan of doing that for 2 years so they can save up to send this horse to horse training.
Well, for the insemination of the mare.
And the feed to get the horse she bought pregnant.
Expensive.
Which is expensive.
It's also set in the early 2000s.
So they're successful. They get a baby male horse to run, and they get a well-known trainer to train it, and it's off to the races, and it does well. It wins a number of awards. Everything looks up until the horse gets hurt, and there's a decision on whether or not to put it down because it could be lame. They end up not doing that.
The horse's name is Dream Alliance.
The horse's name is Dream Alliance. It gets some like stem cell therapy that actually makes it better than it was before. So it wins one last big race before the film ends. And then we find out that the horse went on to win X amount of dollars and it was retired. And this is based on what the real life people did. And then in 2019, they have a new horse that they're training. But yeah, there's a lot going on in this movie.
There is, but at the same time, it's a very simple story painted in broad strokes.
Super broad strokes.
To say the least. It does feel kind of Hallmark movie-ish.
Very Hallmark.
I do think it's funny that Richard Roper called it one of the most entertaining and lovable films of 2021. There's certainly an audience for this kind of film. I think even in a lot of films from the UK use a similar model, such as the recent Military Wives, which we reviewed, or...
I didn't see that.
You didn't watch it, we reviewed it. Or Peter Cataneo's earlier hit, The Full Monty, comes to mind. Certainly of that ilk, where this little village that couldn't comes together to succeed.
Yeah, I definitely think there's an audience. If my mom could understand a heavy Welsh accent, I think she would really like this movie. Yeah, it's sappy and corny, but heartwarming.
I think it could have veered heavier into the schmaltz, where I'm glad it didn't. But I also found it lacking in a lot of ways. That in Toni Collette is really good at channeling empathy in anything she does. So she is always a bright spot. And when that first scene where she kind of gets everybody together is a heartwarming scene. But then I really felt kind of lost about her connection to Dream Alliance. There is some warmth built with her husband, played by Owen Teale, that I also kind of liked. But it's like just as we pick up on those strands, it kind of loses them.
I'm just going to go down my notes. I thought Brian, if Jim Gaffigan had 12 teeth, would look like that character.
He was giving me a little Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh, yes, yes. I also felt emotional when the other village members decide to go in on the syndicate with Jan. I thought that was really well done. The wig they put Toni Collette in is a mess.
Yeah.
It's a mess.
I agree. Of the other villagers, I know you kind of liked Karl Johnson, who's
the drunk,
the town drunk.
He was my favorite part.
But he's also very broad to me, inserted in ways that are clearly to keep up that comic rhythm.
Yes, I agree.
That I don't know, that also cheapened it a little bit.
Okay.
But yes, it also is something to kind of gravitate towards where everything else was lacking, maybe. Also notable is Siân Phillips as Maureen. She, of course, had 2 children with Peter O'Toole and has a legacy of film all her own. I always think of her look in David Lynch's Dune, which is also that kind of bald-headed countess thing that Faye Dunaway's doing in The Messenger. She also played Cassiopeia in the original Clash of the Titans. So it's nice to see Siân Phillips, who is looking spry. Other than that, Damian Lewis, who, of course, recently played Steve McQueen in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and lost his wife, Helen McCrory. I thought the film does a disservice towards the Howard Davies character.
Which one is that?
Howard?
Yeah. Oh, the one who quits his job as an accountant. Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah. Well, one of my notes is I don't understand his motivation because he's presented as like perhaps having a gambling problem, but all of a sudden he feels very connected to this horse, which I also found confusing because once Dream Alliance is sent off to the trainer, Dream Alliance lives at this stable where he's trained. So these villagers don't get to hang out with Dream Alliance and pet him and feed him. So yeah, I didn't quite get, which we can get into more because I think the scene where, because Howard is hiding this whole syndicate situation from his wife. And when she finds out, it's by mistake. And she tells him, like, not again. I told you if you do this again, after the last time, we are done so. You ruined our family, blah, blah, blah. And then she kind of leaves it at that. So as the audience, I'm sitting there like, so is she leaving him?
She says that in something like, I'm not going to let you compromise our family again.
Right.
And then it's like, well, he is doing that.
Right. So are you leaving or not? But she doesn't.
So yeah, it's unclear. I was also kind of unclear about, salut. The familial situation of Toni Collette's, like, how traumatic was that? What's going on?
Yes.
The relationship with her father, who she's clearly emotionally estranged from, who thankfully dies, so we don't have one more scene where
I failed to mention that we also see Jan, Toni Collette's character, caring for her elder parents.
Yes.
And the father seems very disconnected from her. There's mention of a loss in the family, which initially we assumed was
a child
Jan and Brian had, but that doesn't seem to be the case because at one point she says she was 17 and that was 30 years ago. So then it makes me think maybe Jan had a sibling, but that's not fully fleshed out.
It's just, it's not fully attenuated. Neil McKay's script I thought was problematic in a lot of ways also, because then you have all these scenes where they're at odds with one another, the syndicate, or they're bonding, and all of the cliche dialogue about how we did it. It's like, well, the horse did it. And after it's made possible the Dream Alliance, it could be lame. It's like, it's in his blood. He wants to race. Like, do you? Do you know what the horse wants?
Still trying to finish my notes. So I think the backbone of Jan, of the character, of the person Jan, and what she says is that she needs something to look forward to. And I really wish that the story would have played more into that. Like, why? What's happening? She just seems dowdy and drab, but so does everyone. But like, I don't understand why, except that this, the economy of their village is weak.
I think I wanted more, based on these parameters in this narrative feature, I wanted the parameters personally to be set more around just the gravitational force of Toni Collette.
Sure.
And how emotional and poignant a portrait of this woman could have been. Because it's clear that they really don't care about showing a bond with the animal.
No. speaking of which, the mother horse, the mare, dies during childbirth. Rubel. I did think a funny scene is when the old drunk is separating his money because he must get an allowance or a pension. So he has all these like mason jars that have like rent, beer, whatever, and then horse. I don't know. I thought he was cute.
Or what's the line he has when somebody says your zipper's down and he said the cage is open but the beast is asleep.
Yes.
As far as this is a subgenre unto itself. I've never seen Seabiscuit or Secretariat, which I know that Seabiscuit was a big deal, Oscar nominated glory, but I'm assuming this probably would play to a similar audience.
Sure.
Successfully.
I think what played into the corniness of this story is every scene where Dream Alliance has to perform, whether it was showing to the trainer for acceptance or every race Dream Alliance is in, we have a shot of Toni Collette's character like wishing that he do better. And I just thought like, this horse is just go do what the horse does. Like you wishing upon a star, it just felt so corny.
This, the second half of the film especially is very rinse and repeat.
For sure. Then there's the introduction of, so obviously at the horse races there are owners and horses are very expensive. So all of these owners are wealthy and have multiple horses. And we focus on one in particular who they say owns like all of Essex or something, like, a rich guy. But then we do nothing with him except we see scenes of him where he's like upset that his horse is not winning.
Or mildly approving of Dream Alliance's comeback.
Yeah. Oh, so Howard is already in trouble with his wife for getting back into horses. Then one day, and Howard also seems to not live in the village because he has like a real house with like real kitchen and real fixtures. So he's at work one day and he just gets mad and says like, I quit.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Because all I do here is find ways for rich people to keep their money while poor people are out here struggling, which is noble. But then it doesn't really make sense because he's already in hot water with his wife.
Well, I think that sets up that grand bet that he makes at the end.
Which we never find out if that panned out.
I thought it did, but
you think he did
it's
bet
a very
for
muted kind of...
Okay, so then, so there's that. But then we do see Howard place a bet after Dream Alliance comes back from his injury. So of course no one thinks this horse is going to place. So I guess we're supposed to think that Howard bet the farm on Dream Alliance winning, which he does. So yeah, I mean, there's just so many things that I wanted. Oh, but I brought him up because when he quits his job, he tries to set up like a private accounting business, and the butcher, who's one of the members of the syndicate, comes in for tax advice or whatever, and she pays him with a piece of meat.
Of course.
That really did it for me. Like, this is just so corny.
It's a way to show quirkiness in a very cliche way.
This video's getting long. The horses jumping the hurdles, that was stressful.
Yeah, of course. There are things that are compelling about this scenario that automatically draw you in. And I think an observation you made after we first watched this was like, it's a good Sunday afternoon movie.
The tension that is... What's frustrating about the story revolves around Jan, because in the beginning when they all agreed to get in on the syndicate, they come to an agree. They ask like, well, who's in charge? We all have equal ownership. We all make decisions. But there's a point after Dream Alliance wins his second race, I think, where the one rich guy we focus on, he offers to buy the horse. And Jan says no, absolutely not. And the other syndicate members are like, hold up. Like, we should at least hear the offer. What if it's sweet? And then they shoot that down. Then when Dream Alliance gets hurt, the decision has to be made like, you need to put him down now. Because if you're going to attempt treatment, if it doesn't work, like if you try to fix this tendon and he still has to be put down, you don't get the insurance money, which is worth like $120,000. Mm-hmm. And she says absolutely not. And I just thought like, okay, we'll get into it when I talk about what I wanted this movie to be. But moving forward...
Which, you know what, I haven't seen the documentary it's based on, but I was more interested in seeing that.
Yes. Then there's a scene where Jan talks to Howard's wife because Jan is working at the grocery store, and she kind of reveals to Howard's wife like his motivation, which I just felt was like so...
Also, kind of a very cheap way to get across this, I guess, cheap sentiment with his wife saying, I'm going to come to the Welsh Grand National.
Jan's dad dies, which is like, okay, I guess he's dead.
Again, as I was saying earlier, at least it stops us from having one more scene where he's cold and distant and careless with her emotions. I really wanted to have the kind of feeling you'd have of the horse movies that I've seen, of like National Velvet or Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken or The Black Stallion or The Red Pony.
Okay, what 100% took me out was at the end when it explains like what this horse actually did. They explained that Dream Alliance in total won prizes worth $137,000, which was like, okay, because
we were like, did we read that right?
yeah, I thought I read it wrong, because in the beginning they talk about how some horses win millions of dollars, and this horse only won $137,000, which split between all the syndicate members. Each member got $1,430.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not impressive. Number one. Number two, I think the better story would have been, we don't get any of when the baby horse is born, Dream Alliance, until he goes off to boarding school, horse boarding school. I feel like that would have been the better story, like how it affected all of these people and how it brought them closer together and how it gave them something to look forward to.
Well, because how it sets up the lack of money that this obviously brought them is the initial syndicate meeting when they're saying you need to do this for, they use a Welsh word, but a feeling of emotional motivation, I believe is what they say, is the reason that you should do this.
But then it's like, oh my God, it covers a lot of ground in its nearly 2-hour running time. And I felt like after the horse gets hurt, I feel like the film could have ended. But then we get an extra like 25 minutes of the horse coming back and then winning a big race. Well, whatever. My last gripe is the screener doesn't come with subtitles, or didn't. And I'm assuming if you watch it in the theater, it won't have subtitles.
I believe it's a theatrical release only.
I only understood like 30% of what the characters were saying. And that's me just not being familiar with the Welsh dialect, but you know, if you're also not familiar, I think you will struggle understanding what the characters are saying. So maybe wait till it comes on like streaming so it has subtitles.
Oh my God.
Well, that's valid. Like I didn't understand what they were saying.
Sure, I did help you with some of that. But...
Okay. Because you're, well.
No, just listen. You get better at listening to people.
What would you give this film?
I think if you cry easily, you'll like Dream Horse. But 2.5 out of 5, I think is fair.
I would give it 2.5 out of 5 as well. Thank you.